All right, everyone. It's officially 12:45. So we've at this point we have our online audience that's joined us. Hopefully, some of your family is watching back at home. So I want to welcome everyone to the Kiwanis International Champions of Change event. We are incredibly excited to have you guys here today because I think that when we came up with this program and decided that we wanted to do this about a year and a half ago, Kiwanians are exactly who we were thinking about when we decided to pull this program together. Guys have such awesome stories of really impacting your communities, not only in your hometowns, but also abroad. I think that we learned that quite a bit this morning. So we have a great group of 14 champions of change. We're going to do 3 panels this afternoon where each of them will have an opportunity to tell their story, hopefully get in a little bit more about their challenges and things that they faced and funny stories and best practices. So the hope today is that those will really come out and give them an opportunity to shine. So before we do that, I want to welcome a really special guest with us today. It is the Deputy Administrator of USAID, Donald Steinberg. And the Deputy Administrator, as we learned this morning, there's so much opportunity for partnership with USAID and many of the programs that you guys are doing globally. So we're really excited to have him here to talk about a little bit about his experience and talk about hopefully more opportunities for partnership. So with that, I want to turn it over to the Deputy Administrator.
Thank you so much. It is really a great honor to be here today, and especially reading some of the bios about what people have been doing around the world. This comes as no surprise to me. My dad was a Kiwanis, and just meeting with some people in the back room, they have now made me an honorary Kiwanis, which I'm very proud about. But in reality, I've worked with your clubs all around the world, beginning 35 years ago in the Central African Republic, but then moving on to Brazil and Malaysia, South Africa, Haiti, Angola. And it's been a great pleasure to watch the dedication and the professionalism of your club members all around the world. One of the things that it has taught me is that no government, no international organization, no private group alone has a monopoly on good ideas, on financial resources, on ground truth, or on moral authority. We are much better when we work together. And I've often believed that groups like yours represent the eyes, the ears, and the conscience of America in the international community. I've in fact said that even in countries where I was the official ambassador, the real ambassadors were Americans coming on voluntary programs and contributing and showing the best of what America has to offer. You know, as we look in the development area, to me it is obvious that we have made tremendous progress internationally. No matter what you see in terms of the droughts around the world and the conflict and the unrest, the reality is that over the last 20 years, since the end of the Cold War, we've made more progress in eliminating poverty and improving conditions of people's lives than at any other point in human history. We have moved 600 million people around the world above the poverty line. We've seen incomes around the world grow by 60% in real terms. A third of the kids who were dying in infant mortality or child mortality are now living to lead rich lives. We have more kids in school around the world than ever before, and we have more democracies around the world. So even the flood of governance and human rights that we're seeing in many countries is really just expanding around the world. In Africa alone, at the end of the Cold War, there were 3 democracies. Today, there are more than 24. We have not achieved that all on our own, of course. The United States has been a very willing partner to countries around the world through our development assistance programs. And I would remind you at the beginning that the entire development budget of the United States represents less than 1% of our national budget. It's actually an interesting statistic because they asked in the Chicago poll around the country what percentage of our budget goes to foreign assistance. The average American said 25%. And then they came back and said, what percentage would you like to have? And they said, well, around 6 or 7. And I said, yeah, that's great. We'll take it. With that assistance, what we are doing around the world is focused on 6 areas. We're focused on food security. There are too many people around the world who are not getting the average intake of calories they need on an everyday basis. It is stunting the growth of children. We just did a review of the situation in Mali, which we're very deeply concerned about. 60% of children in Mali are stunted because of an absence of good nutrition when they're growing up. This is the world that we're going to live in, and we can do something about it. The president, bringing together the leaders of the G8 group about 3 months ago, brought together those countries from the developing world, 50 major corporations, and said, we can improve to the point where 100 million people around the world get over that nutritional level, and we're going to do it in 5 years. It involves very little U.S. resources, but we have the capacity to leverage. We're doing the same thing in the health area. Again, the president brought together UNICEF, he brought together developing countries, the Gates Foundation, and said, let's make a goal to eliminate preventable child deaths within a generation. And we've committed to do that. We're already seeing great progress, but there are still 6 million kids who die around the world from the basic diseases that every American child is immune to, whether it's measles or tuberculosis or those types of things. And again, it's the leveraging capability with private American citizens, with private citizens all around the world, with corporations. I mentioned before that the United States provides about 1% of our budget. The truth is, that's less than what you as private citizens contribute every year to your own organizations working abroad. We give about $30 billion for development assistance. You, through groups like your own, through faith-based organizations, through foundations, give $37 billion to promote development and humanitarian relief around the world. So the third area that we're working in is climate change. We are seeing tremendous negative impacts. You see it in the Midwest in the United States. You see it with the proliferation of tsunamis and tornadoes all around the world. And again, we're putting some of our money into remediation efforts and adaptation efforts, but we're also leveraging. And so one of the most exciting things that I've had the privilege to do over the last year was to work with a group called the Consumer Goods Forum. This is Coca-Cola, this is Unilever, this is Colgate-Palmolive, 450 companies with total sales of $3.1 trillion. And we went to them and we said, you have as much of an interest in the global environmental status as we do. And they have agreed that by 2020, they will have a net deforestation of 0 from their entire supply chain. Again, if you think about all the loss of forests around the world, half of it comes from the products they produce. And they have committed, without a single US dollar of official money, that they will eliminate any deforestation that they're doing around the world. We're also involved in promoting democracy and governance around the world. What we've learned a long time ago is that it's not up to the United States to continually be supporting these countries. Our goal is to have them develop to the point where they are sustainably able to take their own development drive and move it ahead. But for that, they need clean governments, they need representative governments, they need governments that reflect the will of the people and not simply the elite. It is not just about producing high growth rates. If you think about Egypt, for example, over the last decade, they've had great growth rates, 6, 8, 10%. But the income wasn't distributed properly. There were too many young people who didn't have jobs. There were women and indigenous groups and ethnic minorities who were discriminated against. And the result was the revolution that we saw in that situation. So we need growth that is equitable, and we need growth that has a meaning for the people of its own country. You only get that through a democratic system. We're also committed to humanitarian relief around the world. When there's a drought, when there's an earthquake, when there's a tsunami, when there's conflict, we are there in the best instinct of the American people. You know, we're all very torn about what's going on in Syria right now. It's an absolute disaster. But one thing you can be proud of is that the United States is providing humanitarian assistance for almost 1 million people in that situation. We are feeding people. We are making sure that they have houses to go to when they're displaced by conflict. We're making sure that they have medical support. And this is being done relatively quietly because we don't want to be getting pushback from the Syrian government in this area. But just because we cannot solve for political or military or geostrategic reasons the underlying problems in that situation doesn't mean we have to sit back and watch suffering around the world. This, as you heard just a moment ago, is a partnership. And I really do want to stress that. I mentioned, for example, the work we're doing with private enterprise, the work we're doing with groups like your own. But it also involves using the best intellect, the best innovation in this country. You heard the posts that I served in, and they're very difficult posts. I've had malaria 8 times. And one of the things that I did when coming to USAID was to say, this is ridiculous. How can we have a world where even an American diplomat serving in a foreign country just constantly is subjected to this disease? And the worst part when you get malaria is the time between when you feel the symptoms and when you can take the curative doses. You don't want to take the curative dose too soon because it has a really bad impact on your body. So if it's not malaria, you don't want to take it. But yet, if you wait too long, in the case of cerebral malaria, which I've had, 24 hours, you're dead. And yet, if you're in a rural area around the world, how do you figure out whether you've got it? So we raised this issue, and we raised it on college campuses around this country. And from UCLA and MIT and Makerere University in Uganda, kids for a while put aside their computer games and they started to work on this issue. And within a few weeks, they had identified a piece of glass that you could put over a cell phone, a lens, that had the resolution necessary so that you could take a picture of a smear of blood anywhere around the world, email it to a lab, and within 5 minutes you find out whether it's positive or negative. We're now trying to figure out how to get this to the point where we can, send it around the world. But remember, 6.5 billion cell phones are out there. So even where we can't get clinics, we can get cell phones. Very similar thing I want to describe. All around the world, we have a major problem with arsenic in drinking water. It's even in very small traces, it can cause stunting, it can cause death for children. So we couldn't figure out how to get it out of water. So we asked, again, in what we call a grand challenge, we said, kids around America, figure it out for us. Within 6 weeks, we got the answer. And it is so simple that it's ridiculous. All you do is you take a lead ring and you put it at the bottom of a tube of water. The lead chemically links with the arsenic. It gets it down, you have a filter there, and you can drink the water on top. This was developed by kids from Harvard working with university in Bangladesh, and we're now deploying it around the world. I believe we're going to see literally hundreds of thousands of kids have rich lives because of this initiative. And we're doing this all across the board. There's one girl, just the last story, who at the age of 14 in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, heard about landmines. And we've had huge problems identifying where the landmines are in the ground. I was Bill Clinton's advisor for fighting landmines. And we even got to the point where we spent millions of dollars trying to replicate in a laboratory the nose of a dog, because dogs can sniff out landmines. And yet you can't have dogs in all these places. So we spent millions of dollars trying to do that, and it never worked. And frankly, what we did was go out and buy a lot of dogs, because we figured, you know, every dog comes attached with a nose, so it was perfect. So this 14-year-old girl in Lancaster, Pennsylvania said, this is silly. I've got to be able to come up with this. And I will say both of her parents are PhD physicists, so she sort of comes from good stock. But she spent 3 years working on it. And a year and a half ago, she said, I figured it out. And I'm going to oversimplify it dramatically, but all you essentially do is send 2 waves of sound into the ground. And they do a little bit of a 3D kind of thing with sound, and where they get a thud and no sound comes back, there's an object there. And usually in these situations, it's a landmine. You know, when I heard about this, I said, ridiculous. We now have our Defense Applied Research Production Agency looking at it. It's right. It is going to be the answer. Again, a 17-year-old girl in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, came up with that one. So I think as we step back, again, as government, we have to do everything we're doing with great modesty and a great understanding that we do not have this monopoly. The other thing, and I know I'm sort of using up my time, but I wanted to just finish by saying how important I believe this work is. And I think it's really important for 3 reasons. And I heard the president say this a couple years ago. So, you know, you're always at the White House safe when you quote the president. So he said development abroad matters to the American people for 3 reasons. First of all, it's in our national spirit. We as individuals want to live in a world that's peaceful, that's prosperous, it's democratic, that respects human rights and respects human dignity. And I think that, for many of us, is the primary motive. But we also have to remember it's in our national economic interest. If you think about the fastest growing markets for U.S. exports in the world right now, 13 of 18 are in countries that are either receiving foreign assistance right now or have graduated from foreign assistance. This is South Africa, it's Indonesia, it's India, it's South Korea. So development matters for us because it creates exports, which create American jobs. But finally, it's in our national security interest. If you think about it, countries around the world that are peaceful and prosperous and democratic don't tend to traffic in drugs that end up in our inner cities. They don't traffic in people. They don't traffic in weapons. They don't provide sanctuary for terrorists or even pirates now. They don't transmit pandemic diseases around the world. They don't send off large numbers of refugees across borders and even across oceans. And they don't require American troops on the ground. We had General Petraeus come and talk to USAID a few months ago. And the single message he communicated was, for every USAID officer in the field, it means we don't have to send American troops in that environment. He said, we are not going to fight our way out of Afghanistan. We are going to develop our way out of Afghanistan. So again, thank you for all you're doing in this space. Thank you for the collaboration and the cooperation we've had. We look forward to increasing partnerships with you, and thank you for coming.
Good afternoon, fellow Kiwanians, and welcome again to the White House. I'm Felice Garoto, and I'm with the White House Office of Public Engagement and Intergovernmental Affairs. It's a real honor and privilege to be here with you today because I have also been a part of the Kiwanis family for more than 15 years. I think it's also appropriate that the White House is honoring Kiwanis as champions of change because I personally know that in every community where there is a Kiwanian, there's a true servant leader who's championing positive social change for the good of their communities and living up to the Kiwanis motto of serving the children of the world. From organizing volunteers to support homeless shelters in South Florida, to physically building bridges and community centers in Haiti and the Dominican Republic, I've witnessed how Kiwanis has been true champions of change. It's also worth noting that through your service, we've raised more than $100 million to virtually eliminate iodine deficiency disorder. From 2000 to 2001, I was honored and humbled to serve as on Kiwanis' Key Club International board as Key Club International vice president. And I can honestly say that it was one of the most formative experiences in my life. Kiwanis taught me the true meaning of service. Kiwanis taught me how to organize our communities, and it afforded me lifelong friendships and mentors that have forever changed my life, two of which are here with us today, Mike Downs and Stan Soderstrom. For this reason, it's a real honor and privilege to introduce our Kiwanis Champions of Change. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage. From the Kiwanis Club of Phoenix, Arizona, Danny and Pam Spittler. From the Kiwanis Club of Cheatham County, Tennessee, KT District Lieutenant Governor John Mayfield. From Kiwanis Club of Venice, Florida, 2003 and 2004 Kiwanis International President Bob Moore. From the Kiwanis Club of Garland, Texas, and Texas District Governor Susan Heenam. And from the Kiwanis Club of Frankfort, Kentucky, William Beard. And the list goes on. From the Kiwanis Club of Little Rock, Arkansas, Sanford Tollett. From the Kiwanis Club of Knoxville, Tennessee, Sheena Curley. From the Kiwanis Club of Ruston, Louisiana, Lamiston District Lieutenant Governor Jeffrey Woods. From the UT Brownsville Circle K Club, Sanjuana Zavala. And from the Francis Scott Key High School Key Club of Taneytown, Maryland, Capital District Lieutenant Governor Josie Grant. From Ragsdale's High School Key Club in Jamestown, North Carolina, Bradley Blizzard. From the Raccoon Valley Action Club of Jefferson, Iowa, Brendan Bachelet. And from the Crescent Harbor Elementary Kiwanis Kids Club in Oak Harbor, Washington, Emily Lang. Please join me in congratulating our champions of change.
Second panelist, you guys can just follow in this front row here. You want to go this way? Right here. Yeah, just this direction. All right, I want to welcome up our first moderator, Kate Bennett. So she is actually also with the U.S. Agency on International Development. So we're excited to have her to lead our first panel.
Well, thanks for having me. My name is Kate Bunting, and I'm the Director of Public Engagement at the U.S. Agency for International Development. I was really thrilled when I was asked to come over. I got an opportunity to sit here and read everybody's bios and hear about all the interesting projects that are going on. And I thought, this is just a perfect connection with the Agency for International Development. So the first thing I'd like to do, just because I know there's folks that have not heard your stories, is to ask you each to briefly give us just a description of what's the project you're here today to talk about? And Susan, why don't I start with you?
Thank you. My project is kind of a joint combination between my Kiwanis district and Buckner International Shoes for Orphan Souls. We started back in 2000 looking for a project that would partner well with our K-Kids clubs, which is elementary, and in our case, 4th and 5th graders. And we wanted a project that the kids could grab onto and call their own and understand. So one of the things that we looked at was the Shoes for Orphan Souls project, which we love because it's easy and the kids can understand someone doesn't have a pair of shoes. So we worked together with the kids and the Builders Club and a Key Club, and we collected shoes. And the K-Kids would write little personal notes to each of the recipients. And then the Builders Club and the Key Club would tie the shoes, and then they were shipped to orphanages all around the world. And we've collected probably since the program we first started working back in 2000, probably almost 35,000, 40,000 pairs of shoes and socks.
That's great. Bob, you want to go next?
Yeah. I'm really representing Kiwanis on an international project. As I happen to be in on the ground floor, and it's called, our first worldwide service project was iodine to virtually eliminate iodine deficiency disorder. And I was on the original committee that picked that as a project. And when we heard it the first time, nobody knew what it was. And it basically, iodine, the lack of iodine is the leading cause of preventable mental retardation in the world. Iodine, if you get it in salt, you can do it. And we had a campaign. We advocated for it before the United States Congress and other entities. We put together a group of partners, including UNICEF, Morton Salt, and it's been labeled as the most successful public-private partnership to virtually cure a known health problem ever. And I was with it from the beginning until now, and I still do it through being a chairman of the Micronutrient Initiative, which is also in that area. That's mine.
Go ahead, John.
Hi, I'm John Mayfield from Cheatham County. I've been a Kiwanian since way back in the mid-2000s. And I'm here to represent Eliminate, the eradication of maternal neonatal tetanus. And I want to do it earlier than 5 years because there is a sense of urgency about this. We're talking about actually saving lives every day. And hopefully you're going to ask me about it later. But this is our project right now, our international project. And right now when I speak, we say every 9 minutes a child dies. I'd like tomorrow to say every 10 minutes a child dies, and the next day say every 11 minutes. And then after a year say, well, every 365 minutes, which is 6 hours, a child dies. And then just have this end like the IDD did, and be the most successful project where people you have an opportunity to just save lives, and I'll talk about it more later. But I gave a donation. I got to go to Sierra Leone on a site visit, and it was life-changing. The whole Kiwanis world is life-changing, believe me.
And Danny, I'll ask you to speak for the two of you.
Yeah, Danny and Pam Spittler, we're members of the Kiwanis Club of Phoenix. We got involved in a project about 7 years ago. We were traveling in Cambodia and had an opportunity to just make a real connection with our tour guide there, a young man who had survived the genocide in Cambodia, although he lost his father and some family members during that time. But he had managed to survive and became a fairly successful tour guide. But we were really struck with his passion about helping young people in his country, and we talked about some of the problems that they had. And we just kind of continued the friendship through email, and he eventually asked us if we would be interested in helping him start a school in Cambodia, in a rural village where the youngest children had no access to education. Well, that sounded like a very daunting project to us, but we felt like it was maybe worth investing a little bit of money in. And so what was going to become what we envisioned as a small little two-room wood and thatch schoolroom with a couple of teachers suddenly became a very big project when instead of 40 or 50 children showing up, almost 200 children showed up to register. And so we quickly expanded the project, and it's been going ever since. We've added a grade every year until we had kindergarten through 6th grade. And as of yesterday, when we had registration for this school year, we think that this school year we're going to be serving about 700 children. We want it to be a very sustainable project. We have a Cambodian administrator. All of our staff are Cambodian. And while we do have some Western volunteers that come in and assist, we're really trying to make this a very, very sustainable program, and a program that can maybe be emulated by other NGOs, along with a great working relationship with the Ministry of Education in Cambodia. So we're excited about the project and happy to tell more about it.
Well, thank you. You know, you each talked a little bit about the project you're involved in, but I'm struck a little bit. Some of you, it sounds like, you know, did one overseas visit and that was it, and others of you have maybe been doing this for a lifetime. I guess I'd like you to kind of draw upon those experiences and see if you can tell us a little bit about, you know, not only what inspired you, but what you think will inspire others to get involved and activated. I'll look around. Who wants to start first? Danny, do you want to start that one?
Well, we, Pam and I have always had kind of a passion for world travel, so we've traveled to 70 countries together over the last 12 years. And we just find that traveling and being involved in other cultures and seeing other cultures really opens our eyes as far as understanding, not only, of course, appreciating what we have here in the United States, but understanding a lot about the commonalities that we have with other countries and how much we have in common. And so when this opportunity arose, it just kind of seemed like a natural for us, but we really encourage people to travel internationally, or certainly try to understand what's going on internationally, and realize that we really do have an awful lot in common with nearly all of the other countries in the world. And and where we're at in Cambodia, it's just amazing how much you can accomplish with so little. Our budget is really minuscule, but yet we're able to accomplish a great deal just because of what a very small amount of money can do in that particular economy, in that particular environment. And I'm sure that's true of many places all over the world.
Great. Bob, you look like you had something to add.
When I was on the Worldwide Service Project Committee, I got to make a trip to Ghana to see the effects of iodine deficiency. And when I was a kid living in Kentucky, I was born in Kentucky, I can remember people with goiters. And when we went to Ghana, there were people with goiters. And the children would come out and raise their head when we went into the little villages to show us if they had a goiter or not. They knew they had a problem. And when you have iodine deficiency, you can have a IQ level that's at 10 to 13 points lower than it would be normally. And so these kids knew they had a problem. And that really struck me because we were there investigating the problem, not bringing the cure. And so we vowed to bring the cure for iodine deficiency disorder to the world. And it changed my life. I was very content to be a small town lawyer. And that kind of changed my life. I ran for the national board, became international president, and lobbied Congress on that behalf. And Kiwanis has been a firm advocate for not only eliminating iodine deficiency, but for other worldwide surgery, our new worldwide surgery service project, plus for children. Our major emphasis is young children priority 1, 0 to 5, and that's true all over the world, and that's what we've been working at. And I just became changed by that visit. What really changed me was I was in a pediatric clinic in a little town called Jarapa, and the waiting room was a sidewalk in the sun. And parents are sitting there with their sick children and getting in to see that doctor. And on his wall, he had a plaque. And basically, I can't recite it all, but basically it was a child with a young African boy squatting, basically about his blood is being formed now, his bones are being made now, and now is the time we have to help him. And I took a picture of that, and we have handed that out all over the world. But that's the passion we have for children. And I represented Kiwanis, not just myself, but Kiwanis.
Great. I want to switch focus just a minute, but in terms of, each of you are working overseas, and sometimes that can be really challenging, I bet, when you're talking to people at home, folks say, there's such a great need. What do you say to people when you try and explain to them what is driving your passion? Susan, do you want to start on
Sure,
that?
thank you. For me, it's teaching our children and the K Kids, the Builders Clubs and the K Club, teaching them that we can help make the world a better place. We have a lot of struggles right now in Texas and Oklahoma. We've got a lot of kids that parents have lost their jobs and unemployed. We've got a lot of hunger, other issues that are going on. These kids need to believe in something. And when they can help another child somewhere else, even as simple as a pair of shoes, they have a feeling that they've really done something. And a lot of people might think, well, that's not a really big thing, a pair of shoes or a pair of socks. But to these kids, when they get to pile all these shoes up and they get to see what they've brought in, that's big for them. And they feel like on some level they've contributed all the way across to Russia, to an orphanage in Russia. And we even have a lot of orphanages in South Texas that get the shoes. Anyone can apply for them. They don't have to. Buckner travels all over the world for that. But I think that for these children, they get it. They understand that maybe these kids don't live in the United States, but they understand that what it would be like to not have those shoes, because they see their classmates, they see what's going on in their own small town. And it's been really rewarding for them to be able to reach out to other children. And I think that's what helps for them.
That's great. And John, I know you and I talked about this a little bit backstage. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you deal with these challenges?
Yes. When I speak to clubs, I usually talk about how the baby dies. But Alan Penn was talking earlier about this is the 25th anniversary of having women in Kiwanis. So I want to put it into the mother's perspective. And not being a mother, of course, I'm an expert on the mother's perspective. But I can only imagine. You find out that you're getting ready to have a child. The child starts kicking within your body. The child has a heartbeat. This is your child. And you carry this child for 9 months. You start picking out names of children. You start planning the child's future. Then you're uneducated about how to have this baby. So you're all of a sudden your water breaks out in the field somewhere. A guy picks up a knife. He cuts the umbilical cord. The baby gets tetanus, and within 10 days it's dead. I mean, it's that simple. I'm not going to put you through how the baby dies, because it dies in a dark room. It can't be held by its mother, and we've got to stop this. We have the capability to stop it. I found out through our partner with UNICEF, who is just unbelievable, that we can do this. UNICEF's records are impeccable. They're recognized throughout the world as with integrity, and they're working with governments, and only through Kiwanis, UNICEF, and local governments can we stop this. And it's very easy, and there's a sense of urgency. If you're sitting there and you've just done a service project and you're thinking, well, I'll send the money in next August, send it in today. We want to stop this, and we want to stop it really quick.
Thanks. So I think what I've heard across the panel today is that you've each been driven by sort of a passion. You saw something, you saw how you could maybe fix the problem. The sense of urgency, that certainly is something where you really wanted to be able to fix it and fix it today. And I think, as well, just knowing, that you had a way to do that. What would you say to somebody who's out there today who has recognized a problem they want to fix, but feels a little challenged right now and can't figure out how to plug in? What was the big challenge you had, and how did you overcome it? Danny?
Well, for us, technology really made it happen because we were dealing with overseas, but with the internet and with email and now with Skype and the kind of technology that's available, we can actually be in contact with our staff there every single day. We can exchange a lot of emails, then we can schedule a Skype conference 2 or 3 times a month. And you really can manage a project like that here just because of the technology that we have today. So it's not as challenging as it may have been years ago. So that's certainly one great advantage that we've found, and that's made our project possible and made us feel very comfortable that we're in control and we know what's happening on a day-to-day basis.
That's a good point. Bob?
Just real quick, Kiwanis, when we started this, had never done a worldwide service project. All the money collected locally stayed locally, and we were more local oriented. We had to change the mindset of Kiwanians first in education, that we needed to look at the world as our field of operations. Secondly, you have to get people to help coordinate and cooperate with. You do a lot better when you can get multiple organizations involved in a project. You can make it easier. Third thing on our part, we advocated before Congress. We came and testified and got Congress involved in it, and the United States government and governments around the world in our project because of the scope of it. We moved iodine. The way you cure iodine deficiency mainly is you put iodine in salt. When we started this project, 15% of the world had access to iodinated salt, and about 85% of the world has it now. But it's all because we got people together, explained the problem, and the first people who got it in Kiwanis was the K Kids, the Builders Club, the Key Club, and the Circle K. They didn't ask about what their money was going for and how come it was going out of the locale. They really jumped on it. And I think Key Club raised $2.5 million in our project. That's our high school organization.
Wow. Susan,
what
you
we
looked like
did.
you had something you wanted to add.
If you've got an idea and you're watching today and you're sitting around, you want to help something, first, go to your local Kiwanis Club if you're not a Kiwanis member. And if you don't know if you have a Kiwanis Club, go to Kiwanis.org and fill out that little form and see if you don't have one. And if there's not a Kiwanis Club in your area, go to the Texas-Oklahoma District website and join our E-Club that we're fixing to form. But
Especially within the next 9
within
days.
the next 9 days, go to the Texas-Oklahoma site and get on that Key Club. But I think you want to look for an organization that maybe does the things that you do, and it's difficult if you're an individual out there. But if you can find a Kiwanis Club that maybe has that same love that you do, then you're not only going to find someone else that helps you complete your project, you're going to form these unbelievable relationships with people that will last you your lifetime. But I think that people forget. They think, oh, well, I can do service at my church or I can do service at my job. But that's not the same thing as doing service to people that love you. And that's really important. So go to the Texas-Oklahoma District website and join our E-Club.
All right, well, John, I'll give you the last statement here, and then
Okay.
I think it's time for us to wrap up.
As soon as I gave the money, somebody came up to me and they said, why don't you give that locally and help local children? And I said, I do. And I do. You can Google me and you can see that I do. But the big obstacle is that they want to give locally. Well, we're not asking you to give up giving locally. We want you to give locally. We want you to add a project or add something to what you're already doing for Eliminate, and be aware that this is a global organization of volunteers dedicating to changing one child and one community at a time.
Well, that's great. I want to thank each of you for sharing your stories and giving us some insight about how others can get involved and inspired by the work that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.